Pursuant to order, I now call upon matters of public interest, and I think it's Senator Sterle I have on my list. Senator Sterle.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy President, and Senator Brandis, thank you, and I appreciate you giving me the call. I do have to bolt somewhere else. Mr Acting Deputy President, I want to take this opportunity to report to the Senate on a recent visit to the United States of America that I took to examine the challenges facing the North American road transport industry. And as many of you in this chamber would know, and in this building, that I am a very, very passionate and proud supporter of our transport industry, having spent many years as an owner-driver hauling furniture through this great country. Mr Acting Deputy President, in the USA the basic wage is just $7.50 per hour, and we know the parity between the Australian dollar and the American dollar is quite frightening. In California it's slightly better, it's I believe about $8.50 an hour. What there is in the United States, Mr Acting Deputy President, is a marked distinction between union and non-union workers' wages and conditions. I had the absolute pleasure of attending the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Western Organisers Conference in Los Angeles. I know it came as a shock to you, but I am a very, very passionate supporter of the Teamsters, and I was honoured to meet some of the leading lights of the American International Brotherhood of Teamsters, just to name a few. Mr Jimmy Hoffa, the General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, fantastic person, and I wish President Hoffa does come down under very soon, and I do acknowledge Senator Feeney's acknowledgement as well. Also, I'd like to mention a few more very worthwhile people that looked after me in the United States. Tim Beattie, the Director of Global Strategies, Mr Jeff Farmer, Director of Organising, who I've had the pleasure of meeting on a number of occasions. Jeff has been a visitor to Australia. Dan Sullivan from Washington, an organiser with the Teamsters. Jason Gately, an international organiser out there in Las Vegas. Mike Mangnani, the Secretary-Treasurer of the local 995. Larry Griffith, the Secretary-Treasurer of the local 14. Bob Morales is the Secretary-Treasurer of Local 350 in Daly City, California, and a very good friend of mine, Rudy Gonzalez, from the Local 856 in San Francisco. Mr Acting Deputy President, while at the conference I was given the opportunity to attend a Teamster organised rally in the streets of Los Angeles. 30,000 people attended this. Senator Brandis, for you, Mr Acting Deputy President, I proudly had my Teamsters shirt on. Our job, our community, let the fight begin. But I did join the rally of 30,000 people, Teamsters from all walks, from all professions, and proudly supported by other unions and other workers. The reason for the rally in Los Angeles is that there is, as you would know, Mr Acting Deputy President, financially and economically America has its challenges. But unfortunately, as is normal with most of reactions to these situations, there is a Republican governor in Wisconsin. His name, I believe, is Scott Walker. And to cut a very long story short, as we've seen here before, if the economy is lagging, if things are looking bad, where's the first cuts that we should target? Where else but workers? And anyway, to cut a very long story short, I believe when the announcement was come to strip Wisconsin public sector workers of their right to collectively bargain, and not only collectively bargain but to be covered by a union negotiated agreement. 130,000 people attended a rally in Wisconsin. The fight's going on. Unfortunately for the good folk of Wisconsin, the public sector, the Republican senators voted in favour of stripping their rights and conditions in the workplace. So hence the Teamsters have sent a very loud message to the City of Los Angeles that if any of those shenanigans were going to happen, there'd be a warning fight across the bow that Californians wouldn't take it laying down. The disturbing reality is, Mr Acting Deputy President, that in the United States, if it's your job to safely command the wheel of a 40-tonne truck with a container full of hazardous materials or imported consumer goods from the wharf to the warehouse, you only can expect to earn $28,000 per year, which equates unfortunately to $26,500 here in Australia. I know that sounds hard to believe. The harsh reality of it is a fact. 40-tonne semi-drivers on $26,500 Australian a year. frightening. And I'm just asking senators and those listening, Mr Acting Deputy President, it is so hard to imagine if you're hauling everything from mattresses to MP3 players or televisions and tennis shoes to fuel and other vital services was a minimum wage job without a union or a contract in Australia. Unthinkable. Sadly, in America, it happens. In America, the thought that you would have access to health care and a pension for working in such a dangerous job, but in an important industry in the global economy, sadly, is a joke. It's not a very funny joke. I couldn't think of another word. There are over 110,000 port drivers in the US, Mr Acting Deputy President, who sadly are devalued this way. I raise this now with so much economic injustice in the world because one of the culprits behind this American exploitation of truck drivers is an Australian company, the Toll Group, which operates at US ports in Los Angeles, New York and Miami. Literally, the working conditions they impose on workers are nothing short of disgraceful. Toll Group truck drivers do not even have access to the clean and safe restroom facilities. Their options, Mr Acting Deputy President, for relieving themselves include going on the side of the road, and we're talking Los Angeles, we're not talking out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere between Halls Creek and Fitzroy Crossing, we're talking suburban Los Angeles, or using a plastic bottle in the cab of their truck. This is just incredible, but this is what's happening. This is because, Mr Acting Deputy President, their company, toll subsidiary FMI, merely provides them a filthy toilet and actually bars them from using the clean indoor facilities that its non-truck driver employees are freely allowed to enjoy. So we, Mr Acting Deputy President, we have a responsibility to raise our voices as the workers in America raise theirs and demand justice on the job. Now you might say, Mr Acting Deputy President, or there may be some cynicism in this chamber, how do I know? I'll tell you how I know, Mr Acting Deputy President. I had the privilege of meeting about 15 truck drivers, port truck drivers employed by the Toll Group subsidiary FMI in Los Angeles. And I'd like to quote from one of them. I'll call him John. And I don't want to use his real name, Mr Acting Deputy President, because sadly Toll has hired a union buster and has started intimidating drivers because they want to address their poor conditions by joining a labour union. Now, Mr Acting Deputy President, John is one of over 12,000 port truck drivers responsible for moving about extremely heavy cargo containers every day, filled with billions of dollars in goods through America's most enormous port complex in Los Angeles. It is very disappointing for me that John, a father of two, one of which is still in nappies, has hauled containers off the port for the last 13 years, but is not rewarded for his work to keep the global economy moving. For the last few years, he has been responsible for moving fashion products from lines at brands like Macy's, Guess and Under Armour from US shores to America's stores. His hard work and the hard work of his compatriots earns Toll a very healthy profit. But sadly, Mr Acting Deputy President, John lacks access to company toilets. In this day and age, it's still incomprehensible. He is not allowed to use the employee break room to even make a cup of coffee before a long shift, nor is he allowed to access that facility to heat or refrigerate his food before he starts work. Only truck drivers are denied the dignity to sit and eat their meals and during their rest breaks. John often loses loads, and this is just disgraceful, but John often loses loads and hours to other employees because the company dispatches work based on favouritism rather than an equitable policy that drivers can rely on for full-time work that guarantees that they can feed their families. John and his co-workers are very, very skilled port truck drivers, committed to providing quality service and the highest degree of professionalism, just like our Aussie drivers do too, Madam Acting Deputy President. Despite their hard work and John's to help the company grow and succeed, the Toll Group denies its truck drivers in the US the rights and freedoms its employees in Australia enjoy. It is our responsibility, Madam Acting Deputy President, to ensure that Toll, that great Australian company Toll, upholds Australian values no matter where it operates. We must help John and his co-workers achieve the labour standards that Toll Group workers receive here in Australia. For we cannot protect model standards in the global economy if we do not do our part to put an end to the abuse and injustice of these workers face elsewhere. But, Madam Acting Deputy President, instead of addressing these concerns as it expands to America, Toll shows what it truly thinks of its workers. Toll wants to prevent their drivers from joining the Teamsters Union. The Teamsters Union has been engaged in a remarkable campaign for the past several years to bring dignity and respect to drivers across America. Toll is able to deny these drivers their right to join the Teamsters because of the legislation that is in place that restricts the good work that unions do in America. In Australia, hard-fought negotiations with the Transport Workers Union and other labour unions, Toll provides its workers with fair wages and conditions. This is a testament to the legislation put in place by the Labor governments to ensure the rights of workers to bargain collectively, as well as the long fight of the labour movement to ensure that workers' rights are protected and always will be protected under a Labor government in their workplace. Madam Acting Deputy President, it's not a throwaway line, but the fight does continue. We have already seen the spectre of the return to work choices from the Leader of the Opposition, who, as we clearly know, does not think there was anything wrong with work choices, those were his words, only that it wasn't sold to the electorate properly. Now, Madam Acting Deputy President, he's now joined by the member for Bennelong, a former tennis player who I'm sure is not short of a quid, and if he's not, good luck to him. But in order to secure his standing in the Liberal Party, has called for the stripping of penalty rates because, ready, they are getting in the way of company profits. If the extremist policies of those opposite are allowed to be enacted into law, then it will only be a matter of time before the industry will take advantage and safe wages and conditions will become the exception rather than the standard that Australian workers enjoy today. This is why, Madam Acting Deputy President, that I will work with the Transport Workers Union to help these American workers as a part of my commitment to uphold the standards for Australia's transport workers, to protect and improve their livelihoods. I stand with our National Secretary Tony Sheldon. I stand with our National Assistant Secretary Michael Caine, and I stand with all TWU members for this fight. And may I, through you, Madam Acting Deputy President, may I also encourage Senator Williams from the Nationals over there, who hasn't stopped gobbing off since I've started talking about safe rates, to make a contribution through you, Madam Acting Deputy President, in this chamber on what he may think of transport workers, their wages and their conditions, because I would be very, very, very keen for you, Madam Acting Deputy President, to hear, because he wasn't cheering and supporting the TWU's fine work through their negotiating skills to look after Australia's truck drivers and keep them safe on Australian roads. You defend your statements, Senator Williams. You stand up here, grab yourself a set of something to give you some machoism to defend why Australian truckies shouldn't be paid a decent, safe wage. Madam Acting Deputy President, in conclusion, I wear this yellow wristband in solidarity with America's truck drivers employed by Toll. It's a symbol of their fight for freedom to unite and speak together as one voice at work, so they have the chance to build a better life for themselves and their children. Now, before I do wrap up, there are another couple of people fantastic people I wish to acknowledge. Mr. Fred Potter, Vice President of Large of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Manny Valenzuela, Western Region Organising Coordinator in California. Manny, thank you, mate, for taking me around and introducing me to a fantastic cohort of truck drivers and Teamster members in California. And Mr. Nick Weiner, National Campaign Coordinator from Change to Win. I challenge everyone in this chamber, Madam Acting Deputy President, to show some strength, show some dignity, stand up for truck drivers. Let's support our brothers in the United States of America, that great freedom fighter of freedom floating out there with disgusting conditions that Australian companies as well can exploit their hard-working men and women in the American transport industry. Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President.
Thank you, Senator Sterle.